All right, so if you're starting a business, if you screw up your business naming a couple years down the road, you're gonna find yourself, or you might find yourself fighting unnecessary marketing battles because you were ignorant of some of the repercussions of naming your business. And we don't wanna be down that road later on. Now, I've been working with dozens of small businesses that are stuck when it comes to online marketing because their business name, their domain name, and their branding was quite frankly pretty unhelpful. Now, your business name really matters when it comes to SEO and marketing. So I wanted to make this video about how your name for your business and naming your business is gonna matter in this digital age, because I find myself talking to business owners all the time. Like seriously, it was just happening last week or 2 weeks ago because it was Christmas, but I find them all the time. They're like 2 to 10 years down the road in their operation, and they're just kicking themselves because their name is really hurting their ability to market and grow, particularly online. So if you're just starting a business, or maybe if you've started a business already, but you haven't done much branding or marketing, maybe you haven't launched a website or anything, and you're getting ready to pull the trigger on some of those things, this video is seriously for you. Now, you gotta remember that optimization has been around for a long time. Before Google, there was yellow pages and phone book optimization. A lot of people don't understand how that has impacted the names of businesses. Our business world is marked by optimization. Now in this era, it's all about the search engines, right? Google, Bing. Now you got Amazon Alexa, Apple Siri, and even Google voice search. But in previous eras, it was all about the phone book. And you should take a minute. You should do this. Go jump onto Google and see how many businesses are called A1, AAA, or any other combination of the first letter of the alphabet and this first numerical digit, because Yellow Pages phone book, if you didn't know this, young people, you used to get a giant phone book basically like every quarter, and there was the white pages, which was people, and then Yellow Pages, which was business. But this Yellow Pages phone book used to alphabetize their business listings within each category. So if you were looking for a plumber, AAA and A1 plumbing would be listed first in that section, right? So if you were looking for a remodeling company, AAA remodeling might have been the first in that section. And it didn't really matter if there was a AAA remodeling or plumbing in a different category, or a AAA in a different category, because you only wanted to dominate in your specific business category. And it also didn't matter if you were the same name as like another AAA plumber, as long as they weren't in your immediate geographical area. The result of all of that phone book optimization is that there's a concentration of businesses that started in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that have this weird naming scheme, and you might not know that. Just Google AAA remodeling or AAA anything, and you're gonna see so many listings. It is seriously mind-boggling. It's ironic that what used to help businesses be the first solution in the phone book under their specific niche section now actually provides confusion, and it really screws things up on the internet. And it can really help, or it can really hurt businesses when it comes to SEO. Now, every business that's called A1 and AAA is now faced with the challenge of establishing themselves as a unique web entity against the thousands of other similarly named organizations. They all have the same naming scheme. Just go jump into Google. Now, another blunder that I see is that businesses will often keep a vague business name, or a name that's been claimed by like a whole bunch of other businesses. You think of names like Top Notch, High Gear, High Caliber, Real Impact, or like other generic statements like that. You can probably think of a dozen or so. In fact, if you've got some typical business names that people overuse, I'd love to see some examples so I can update this blog post. But here's the bottom line. The way that you name your business matters for search engine optimization and for marketing, and not only online, but offline too. It matters to people who will attempt to interpret your brand messaging, and it matters to search engines that you'll be trying to stand out for. Now, I've done a ton of work, I really have done a lot of work with small businesses, and particularly local ones, and I needed to find this video. This is for you if I've sent you to this video, to explain things. And really, there's 4 tips to properly naming your small business so that it can dominate in SEO and create consistent signals across the entire internet about what you do and the problems that you solve. So the first of the 4 tips I've got, and these are my 4 tips that I personally end up telling everybody, but the first of the 4 is to plan before you launch. Trying to change your name after you've launched in the digital world absolutely sucks. It's not that bad actually to change it, your LLC or some business name like that, but once it's gone digital and you've launched all those, It's not easy. I'll cut to the chase here. There are hundreds of millions of web pages, right? And millions of companies that Google, Bing, Alexa, Siri, and all these other search engines are trying to digest. One of the most important things that you're going to need to do to help to stand out is to establish a consistent and clear naming and branding scheme across as many website entities as possible, right? Your goal is to have every single web entity, every single one, named the exact same thing so that it's clear who you are, what you do, and even where you do it. Now, how many people or other organizations are trusting you is also kind of embedded in that, because you get reviews and backlinks and different things like that. You'll want to have as many listings and citations across the internet, but they need to be 100% consistent in the name, address, phone number, and services listed. Think about the listings that you'll have eventually. You might not be thinking about this right now. You got Facebook, you've got your website, Google My Business, Bing, Apple Maps, Twitter, Yelp, Yellow Pages, like your Chamber of Commerce, BNI, and about 100 other third-party listing sites like Thumbtack, Fiverr, Houzz, and maybe even the Better Business Bureau. Once you do like a citation burst with Moz.com or Bright Local, you're going to have all sorts of these. Now, if you launch all these listings and you find out that you need to change them because your business name was garbage, it creates a headache, and it can be really costly when it comes to the man hours it takes to change them if you're going to hire somebody, if you're going to do it. And these listings also create a problem because your website is going to struggle to rank in light of these inconsistent name structures across the digital map. Google and these other search engines don't do as well. They're getting pretty good, but it doesn't help when they're inconsistent. So this is super important, this concept to understand. It's just basic. You need to do your homework around your business name and your domain name. Now, I'm kind of a serial domain purchaser, so I'm not going to get too noble about this. I've owned way too many domains and URLs than I care to admit to you. My GoDaddy account is pretty bad. Actually, use Google domains. It's much cheaper. But shooting from the hip, when it comes to your business name and your website domain, it's not a good idea. When it comes to your business name, you have to plan. So here's what I've learned about how to plan your business name and your URL. Now, first, make a list of the different names that you're considering. This sounds common sense, but make a list of them and spend time just dwelling on it, saying them. Now, here's the second part. Jump into Google and into Bing and search those names. Find out if there are any major players dominating those business names and try to avoid anybody with a dominant player in it. The next thing you're going to want to do is to work hard to find a name that's descriptive, unique, and focused. And last, keep your name or your URL simple. You got to remember, you're going to be explaining this as an email to people or typing it out all the time. It needs to be short, clear, and simple, which isn't always easy in this era. Google does not, here's a little tip. Google does not value a keyword matched domain name as much as you might think it would. That's one of the problems I see out there. You see all these real estate agents are notorious for it. They have exact phrase URLs where the search term is the domain name, right? That has very little value now that machine learning is kicked into gear with Google and Bing. So having a real estate domain that's called like Minnesota Home, mnhomeforsale.com or mnrealtysearch.com or mnremodelers.com doesn't do anything at all. It doesn't help you with those keywords to rank. And it can cause your business to look like spam if you start searching those things. In fact, I've got a friend whose domain name is one of those, and you search that domain name and it's actually difficult to pop up, or you search that keyword, it doesn't help. So I'm telling you, forget the gimmicks, like using those exact match business names or the exact match domain names. Don't build your business name around that. Naming your business Minnesota Remodeling Company is not going to help you rank for Google when those people search remodeling companies. And it'll actually hurt you, I'm telling you. You want to be unique. Instead of going for gimmicks, work hard to keep your business name and your domain name unique. That's the key, unique. Avoid competing with the big players. That's a huge thing. Like, for example, when I was establishing the business name and the marketing plan for my first business, Nuance Financial Tax and Accounting, I knew that I liked the word nuance. I used to work at Best Buy and I saw nuance and I was like, hey, that's kind of neat. It's like a shade of difference, but I didn't really realize the impact that it would have on our SEO and our digital footprint. There's a Fortune 500 company called Nuance. And while it didn't destroy our local search engine results, it didn't help It does place a cap on some of the public relations and like broader marketing capabilities that we would have had. And it wasn't very helpful. So what I mean, if we were to start building a name for ourselves as a thought leader, for example, let's just say all of a sudden I have a YouTube channel that does really well or something like that. Those that searched our name would continuously find that Fortune 500 company's website rather than ours because they're the same. In fact, when we first started out, it was nearly impossible to get our own website to show up for the term Nuance Financial, which was our business name. The other business was just called Nuance. So I worked really hard to establish it as Nuance Financial Tax and Accounting. Which sounds a little long. Basically, we go by Nuance Financial, but every time we wrote it, it was Nuance Financial Tax and Accounting across the entire internet. And then we build up nice little sets of backlinks and citations, and then we built up our reviews and created content. And now they're the number one return for Nuance Financial, as well as many of the top keywords in the Twin Cities when it comes to CPA, accountants, and things like that. So all this to say, spend some time planning and researching around your company name and your URL before you pull the trigger on anything. It's just too hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. I'm telling you, do your homework. So here's the second thing when it comes to naming your business. Don't use a name that's crowded with other businesses. This sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but just bear with me here. Now you can jump into the Secretary of State website for your state. You can use Google, or you can check out Yellow Pages or Manta.com or Yelp to find out if your potential business name is crowded. We just had a client that we were doing this with. They were branching out on their own, and we had to confront the fact that their name was associated with a jewelry company and a couple other companies, and it was going to be difficult to outrank them when it came to just their business name. And having a unique name is valuable when it comes to this. So for example, this isn't the perfect name at all, but Feedbackwrench, my company name, it's totally unique. Might not be great, but it's unique. And there were no other organizations with that name or anything close to it when I Googled it. So I realized that when I saw it, I had something that could be 100% mine. So here's a reason why having a unique name brand and business name is super important, right? Here's an example. Think of it this way. If you were to have written an article called How to Improve Your Small Business Search Engine Results, something that I would write, or any other blog post in your industry or your sector or your niche, Googling for that article that you published would probably yield like millions of results. But now imagine that you started to use a unique name. It would be much easier for people to identify the content that you produce rather than what's produced by others. It might not sound like a problem right now, but 10 years down the road, this might be different. And the more success you have, the more important this is. So here's what I mean. I highly respect the content and advice from SEMrush, Moz, Ahrefs or Ahrefs, and Search Engine Land. Those are huge thought leaders when it comes to digital marketing. So when I have a question about a certain SEO thing, which is a super crowded space, I usually add one of their business names or their name, which is super unique to my Google searches. And then their articles pop up because I value what they have to say. So as you build up your brand and your authority as a thought leader, having a unique name is going to be really helpful. The other advantage that a unique business name is going to give you is that once you have a good reputation, it'll be harder for your competitors to like crowd in on your name when it comes to Google results and Google AdWords. So think about it. If you search Coca-Cola, you're not going to find anything about Pepsi, right? And when you search Pepsi, you're not going to find anything about Coca-Cola except for way down there, because Google would see that as irrelevant. They know your intent is to look for Coca-Cola. But if you were to search like cola soda or soda companies or best beverage companies, both Pepsi and Coke are going to show up. Sounds kind of silly, but you need to think about it from like a mathematical and computer perspective. Google and Bing want to ensure that the intent of the search query is fulfilled. And if people eventually get to a point where they would actually search for your business name, you want to make sure that your business is what pops up. You might not think that's a problem, but it becomes highly important to have a unique and clear business name when you start doing advertising like display search, or maybe you start doing YouTube ads or Facebook video ads, and you start teaching people and creating content that is adding value to people's lives, but maybe folks aren't exactly ready to buy. Now, when they determine it's time to jump in and buy or set up an appointment or whatever it is that you're trying to do, you want them to have your unique business name and the clear business name in their mind when they search. So when it comes to looking for S Corp Systems, I want you to search Feedbackwrench, right? Not S Corp Systems. And having a clear name is going to help a ton with that. So if your name is clear and it is unique, chances are your competitors are going to have difficulty trying to horn in on that. So when you have a generic or unfocused business name, you can be an easier target for competitors to bid on Google AdWords. They can create competing content. This is huge in the really difficult spaces online when it's really crowded, and I'm just telling you, you're gonna want a unique business name. So finding a unique name's gonna be helpful. Don't use something that has tons of other businesses. You gotta do your homework with this. So the third tip that I've got, and these are all kind of similar, but put your primary region and service in your business name, or at least consider it. Because how does Google know what you do and where you do it? Seriously, don't make Google, or worse yet, Bing, guess what you do and where you do it. Now here's what I mean. I always roll my eyes when I see a Google My Business listing for Johnson LLC or Brightview or something just so vague. I have no idea what it is. They could be a camera company. They could be a remodeling company. Businesses with these names are going to have to work really hard to establish what they do, who they are, and where they are. We've run into, I'm telling you, I've run a ton of experiments when it comes to this. I've read from the biggest thought leaders out there, and there are people smarter than me. I'm not acting like I know everything, but I'm telling you, we've tried this. And to win in local SEO, it requires you to put some unique modifiers in at least your page titles, your website names, and your SEO or your social media profiles and things like that. It's going to help a ton. So the modifiers are going to be like your primary region or your service. So one of my favorite examples to use when I explain this is Frederickson Masonry. It's a buddy of mine that actually lives out here in Minnesota. He's a local Minnesota chimney repair company. Well, for years, Frederickson Masonry was just using a static website that communicated that he was a mason, right? A masonry company out of the Twin Cities. But after talking to him, we realized that the primary focus was really on chimney repairs and fireplace restoration. That meant that there were about 10 different keywords that would matter the most, none of them relating to like the keyword masonry, and yet that's what his site was called. His main service categories were chimney repair, fireplace restoration, and stone facades or something like that. And yet everything in the masonry industry prides itself on being called a mason. Like they're the mason, they have a union. It's pretty important to them. Not chimney repairman. But consumers don't really know what a masonry company is. They don't search that. The thing that they search is chimney repair. And when it came to Frederickson Masonry, we realized that chimneys are a defensive service for him because there's thousands of them in the area here. They have sufficient margins, so it's good work that he wants to do more of, and it's a niche industry. Not everybody's doing it. So he wanted to make his business primarily about chimney repair. So after doing some consulting and going through some exercises, we decided that if we would, it would be appropriate to retool his website and every other web asset around the name, including chimney repair. We went from being Frederickson Masonry to Frederickson Masonry Chimney Repair. We updated the website, social media sites, and Google My Business and changed everything. And it really impacted his business. Now, this brings me to a super important thing about Google My Business, which is about the most important tool for local small businesses. So when you hear that story, when it comes to Google My Business, you hear that story about Frederickson Masonry, most people would nod their heads and say it would make sense to use a proper keyword in the website in order to attract the right prospective clients, right? That makes sense, Frederickson Masonry and chimney repair. But the thing that helped Frederickson Masonry the most was updating their Google My Business page to include the words chimney repair. And then even the region, we added MN in there. This isn't about manipulating Google with keyword stuffing because that's actually against their terms of service. You cannot keyword stuff in your name so that you can dominate the local snippet. This is about communicating to people and to Google about what you do and where you do it. That's really what this is. So there's a fine line, there's a tension to manage with that piece of advice I just told you when it comes to Google My Business. I'm telling you, if you want to win at local small business SEO, you need to get very strategic about your naming your business, the structure of it, and particularly your Google My Business page. And you got to support that with every other web asset that you have. But here's the catch when it comes to Google My Business. They don't allow you to add in keywords as spam to try and rank. and they will shut your business listing down if you do it improperly. So the solution here isn't to shove in keywords into your business name so that you rank on Google My Business. That's not what I'm saying. But you need to do your homework ahead of time and decide on a short, clear, unique business name, and then consider and get feedback on others and really work on the idea about whether you should add your core service or industry sector into your name to help with SEO and just marketing in general, right? Because adding the industry or service to the name as a modifier, it helps the public know what it is that you do and who you are. Like Ground Tech is kind of a cool but generic name. But Ground Tech Excavating and Construction is a much clearer signal. And I'm telling you, it just sends the right signals across the internet, on your pickup truck, and in your marketing. Whatever it is that you're doing, it communicates what you do. So one last note about adding your core service to your business name. It's not that you need to always go by that full Ground Tech Excavating and Construction, right? You can have it as a subheader, and pretty much everything that you do, you don't have to have that on there. Your logo can just say Ground Tech, but your website and every other single digital footprint or listing should say Ground Tech Excavating and Construction. Now, if you disagree with this, things are always changing. I'd love to hear your perspective on this. I'd love to hear in the comment section what you think, but I'm telling you, be unique and consider putting that in. So here's the last little tip, and it's kind of reiterating it. You need to be precise, 100% precise across every web asset and listing. It's kind of saying the same thing over and over again. The last piece of advice is incredibly important, so pay attention. The internet is big and you are small. Because there are like 100 billion web pages, you need to make sure that every single web asset that you have and every listing that you have is consistent with the exact same business name, address, phone number, and services on that. You need to have your name, address, and phone number, or your NAP, on everything, and it needs to be consistent. Your Twitter account, Facebook page, Yellow Page listing, Yelp, Google My Business page, Bing Business, Apple Maps, and all the other citations is what you can do. They need to align across a central naming scheme, and they must be 100% identical. I'm telling you, get this right. Because think about it. If you don't have identical names across every web asset, that would be like registering your name differently at every class you attend in college. How does the college know which student you are if your name's spelling is constantly changing? It's just not helpful. So that's it. Do your homework ahead of time. Pick a unique, clear business name. Consider putting your core industry or service as a modifier in your business name, and then make sure that you keep the name, address, and phone number 100% consistent across every single web listing that you have. I'm Rob Satcham from Feedbackwrench. I hope that's helpful. Have a great one.